Hello, my friends. This is Paul Jansen here from United Reformed Church in Somerville, New Jersey on the weekend of November 27th, which is the weekend of the first Sunday in Advent. So Happy New Year to all of you. I'm going to begin Advent this year with a text that's not in the lectionary, actually, or at least not in the lectionary for this Sunday. But it concerns hope, which is quite commonly the theme for the first Sunday in Advent. This is from Romans chapter 8, verses 18 to 25. Paul writes, "I consider that the sufferings of the present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is about to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay, and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. Now we know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now, and not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we groan inwardly while we wait for our adoption, the redemption of our bodies. For in hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what is seen? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it in patience." Happy New Year to you. We begin the church year this weekend as we turn from Christ the King Sunday to the first Sunday in Advent. We mark these 4 Sundays before Christmas in a traditional way, focusing on hope and peace and joy and love. If you happen to be somebody who has access to the church's In Touch newsletter, then you can check out for a moment or two. But if you don't get the In Touch, then stick with me. Hope, peace, joy, and love. Well, they are feelings, yes, but they're far more than the kinds of feelings that we just gen up for ourselves to get through the day. Excuse me. And while we might sometimes feel overwhelmed by feelings, as though we just get caught up in them and have no choice as to how we feel, in a Christian perspective, these 4 essentials really are choices. We choose to hope. We choose the way of peace. We choose joy. We choose love. We choose them because they come to us from the outside in as gifts from God. God offers them freely as, the way we give gifts to one another at Christmas. So then what do we do with it? Do we choose to receive them or not? And if we receive them, do we open the box and appreciate them? And if we do open the box, then do we use the gifts? Do we incorporate? Do we embody hope and peace and joy and love in our daily lives? So this Sunday we begin with hope. Are you willing to open up your mind, to open up your heart, and allow me to pour some good news in there? That's what I've got for you. For starters, we'll look at the word itself. The Hebrew Scriptures have 2 words that have been translated as hope. One, yakal, is kind of neutral. It just means you're waiting for something. I yakal for a delivery from DoorDash, so to speak. The other word, kavah, is more of a word that's kind of charged, to be honest. It's the name for the tension in a stretched cord. So as I'm waiting for that food on my doorstep, I'm feeling hungry. I'm longing for it. I really want it to come. Now, of course, the biblical writers weren't hoping for an order of chicken wings to come, as we are going to read in the beginning of worship this week. My soul waits for the Lord. That's the yakal. My soul waits for the Lord. More than watchmen for the morning, with that deep longing. That's kavah, the longing, the yearning, really wanting it to come. The Greek Scriptures, when we turn to the New Testament, they have a different word for hope, elpis, and they attach it to Christ and his resurrection, as you would expect. We capture that sense when church sings the song, "My hope is built on nothing less." And how does the chorus go? My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. And then the chorus goes, "On Christ the solid rock I stand." On Christ, the solid rock of our hope. On Sunday, I'll have 3 objects on the table. The first one will be a rock. I probably won't have all that large of a rock. I would like to have a big one, even a boulder, but a table wouldn't hold that, and I couldn't lift it anyway. So it'll be a small rock. We'll have to just think big while we look small. The first piece of good news that I have to offer you is that hope in God is solid. It's stable. It's firm. It's secure, because that's who God is. The God in whom you place your hope, God who will be faithful and make good on God's promises, God is dependable. Dependable, like the solid rock under skyscrapers in Manhattan. I don't just say this to justify your coming to church. This is the lived testimony of God's people for thousands of years. For thousands of years. For that long, we've been saying what we've been seeing. We've looked at the world and said, look, God is dependable. It's there in the Torah. Moses sang, "The rock, God's work is perfect, for all his ways are just, a God of faithfulness, without injustice, righteous and upright." That's in Deuteronomy 32:4. The same testimony is there in the prophets. Says Isaiah, "Do not tremble, do not be afraid. Have I not long since announced to you and declared it? You are my witnesses. Is there any God beside me, or is there any other rock? I know of none." Isaiah 44:8. And it's there in the history books. Hannah prayed, "There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one besides you, nor is there any rock like our God," in 1 Samuel 2:2. And if I had to tell you every place that the Psalms bore witness to this, I would take well over an hour. Here's one. Who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? That's from Psalm 18. Again and again and again, the scriptures tell the stories of our ancestors. You can count on God. On Christ, the solid rock we stand. All other ground is sinking sand. Wise people build their houses on a rock, right? Our God, our help in ages past, our hope, our solid rock, our firm foundation for years to come. Now, the second object that will be on the table is a cord, C-O-R-D, not a musical cord, but a cord like a rope. Shouldn't surprise you. As I mentioned, one of the Hebrew words for hope is kavah, based on the word for a cord. Hope is the tension. It's the tension in a stretched cord. And I want to say that tension, that hope, that is life itself. I know you've heard the expression, well, where there's life, there's hope. I've heard it hundreds of times over the years, and it's always when somebody is really ill and the doctors have kind of run out of ideas and they say, well, my loved one is still alive, so I guess I'll keep up a little bit of hope. I'm sure that gives a certain amount of comfort, but really, hope is life itself. To be alive at all is to have the tension, the tension of hope coursing through your minds, your hearts, even through our veins. You know this. You know this to be true. And you know how dead you feel when you've run out of things to wait for. This morning, when you woke up with the tension of kavah. Maybe a tension is about, well, it could be about coming to church on a Sunday, or maybe that's not all that easy. Maybe it's about something else. Maybe it's about something as simple as going to the grocery store in the morning. Or maybe that's not so simple. Maybe it's a matter of hope that you'll be able to get up and get into the kitchen. How many folks do you know for whom a grandchild's graduation kept them alive? Right? You've known that. How much of the mojo of the Christmas season is the tension? the tension of anticipating a family gathering, and how much of the spirit of it turns sad when you lose that tension. And you wake up on Christmas morning and you say, well, it used to be something, but just isn't anymore. Now, the tension of our hope in the Christian faith is about more than family celebrations. When we say the Apostles' Creed, we speak of Christ coming again to judge the living and the dead. Well, that keeps us in tension, leaning forward to God's day, to the day of Christ's return. That keeps us shaping our ethics with a tone of hope around the world that God is making. It keeps us looking forward to that great getting up morning when God will indeed lead us through an open door into that tomorrow, just as surely as he raised his Son from the dead. On resurrection dawn, God's new day began, but it didn't end there. We live on tiptoe, like a little kid at the Macy's parade, looking up Central Park West to see when the next float's going to come. We are on tiptoe, looking for signs of God's kingdom to come. That's our hope. That's the tension in which we live. But God's hope isn't just a gift to us. It's a gift that God has chosen to give to the whole world through us. So I'll have a pitcher and a bowl and a goblet on the table. Here's what the Apostle Paul wrote about hope earlier in his letter to the Romans. Hope does not disappoint, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit. Hope does not disappoint because it doesn't end with us. It goes through us. My cup runneth over, says the 23rd Psalm. Well, bully for us, there's more than enough wine for me, but where does the wine that's overrun go? And where does hope go when we have fixed our hope on God and we long for Christ's return? It runs over into our families, into our friendships, into our work relationships. You know this as well, don't you? The overflow has been happening from the very beginning of our faith to Christians all over the ancient Near East. Peter wrote, "Be ready to speak up and tell anyone who asks you why you live in hope." Why would he tell anyone that? Unless they were actually living in hope. Unless people were asking the followers of Jesus, what drives you? Why do you maintain such resilience, such positive attitude, such grit? Why do you seem to live in such good cheer, come what may? Where does your hope come from? Well, what do you say? What would you say to that? Other than, well, God's love is pouring into me and it's overflowing. It's overflowing. I don't have the capacity to contain it all. And then you could say, well, here you have some. I'll share it with you. And here's the thing, hope isn't even just for all people. All creation waits with eager longing, says the Apostle Paul. We live in hope that the creation itself will be set free. The whole creation has been groaning in labor pains. That's what it said in today's passage. We're part of something bigger than us, bigger than human relationships. Hope flows through us and drives the whole universe forward. The holly and the ivy, the galaxy, the diatom, all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small. Well, I hope you've heard some good news. Good news that God is the solid rock at the foundation of your faith. God is worth keeping hope in. Good news that we are being pulled forward in the direction of God's day of victory. And it's a bit of a tug, so there is tension in the cord. Good news that God's love overflows through us and guarantees our hope and spreads it around and around through the whole of creation. So one last thing about hope. I know I'm going outside the pages of Scripture for this one, but hear the words of Krista Tippett, the former host of radio's On Being. I believe what she says is true. Hope, she says, is a choice that becomes a practice that becomes spiritual muscle memory. It's a renewable resource for moving through life as it is, not as we wish it to be. I'll say this again. Hope is a choice that becomes a practice that becomes a spiritual muscle memory. It's a renewal resource for moving through life as it is, not as we wish it to be. And this is what we need. A renewable resource, solid as a rock, inviting us to a better tomorrow with an overflow that reproduces itself in the real world, in real people, and in real time. Beloved friends, receive this good news and choose hope. That's all I've got for this week, but I hope that it will be more than enough for a moment, an afternoon, a day, a week. I hope that God will bless you through these words, through these meditations on what hope is. So I say to you this week, as Jesse Jackson would say to his crowds, keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Choose hope, my friends, and may the peace of Christ be with you.